Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to line a hat that you've either bought, knitted, or crocheted. This is my Huntsman pattern that I really love, but I do find crochet hats not quite warm enough. So I've lined this one with this plaid fleece, and now I want to share with you how to do that. To line your hat, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a sewing thread, and a needle. A product, I use Liquid Stitch or Speed Sew. Both of these are really good for gluing things together permanently, but this is only going to be used on the fleece. I do not like the idea of gluing a fleece lining to a project that you've probably spent hours making. Your hat and your fleece, or if you've bought another hat, a fleece hat that you want to use to line it with, that. One thing I strongly recommend is that you pre-wash and dry anything that you're lining the hat with. The last thing that you want to do is line your hat and wash it and have the inside of it shrink. So make sure that anything that you're using is pre-washed. Okay, I've got my fleece here, and when you buy your fleece, there's going to be a stretch to it. So you can see here that it's stretching quite well, but this way it's not stretching as much. So you want to make sure that your stretch of your fleece lining is going to go around your head. So I've lined up my edges here and laid it nice and flat, and it's also been pre-washed and shrunk. And all I'm going to do is lay my hat on top. If you choose to, you can make a template out of cardboard or paper. I'm not doing it for this one because I'm using black and it's going to be hard to see anything that I trace, so I'm not going to do it that way. What I am going to do is make sure that I include a seam allowance when I'm cutting out my fleece. Usually I like to do about 1/2 inch. So that's going to come out to about here. If you want, you can measure it all the way around or just eyeball it. I'm going to eyeball it. My hat will stay nicely against the fleece because they both have a bit of a nap to it. Okay, so actually, just so I don't waste my fleece, I'm going to move it over a little bit. And I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to pause the video at this point and keep cutting it out all the way around. And you'll notice that I don't have much of a seam allowance at the bottom. And when we're attaching the fleece lining, you're going to see why. Okay, thanks. Okay, so I finished cutting out my template here. And you can see that it's about 1/2 inch all the way around. Now the next thing that we want to do is make sure that we have the right side of the fleece facing each other before we make our liner. So on this black fleece, it's a little bit hard to see. You might not be able to see it on camera, but this is the wrong side. It's a little bit more faded. And just so I can show you, if you choose to do a really cute fleece lining like flower or something, it'll be a lot more noticeable. Here you can see on this one is quite faded, where the right side is nice and bright. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lay the right sides facing each other. Again, you can pin this if you want, but for most fabrics, it's not really going to be necessary. They'll stay together nicely. This is the only part that I'm going to use the Liquid Stitch on. For the liner of your hat, it's an easy project and you really can't make a mistake unless you spill it on the inside. And I don't think any of us are going to do that. So this is a great product. I've used it for quite a while, and your hat will be held together nicely. If you're a sewer and you have a sewing machine, by all means, of course, sew it, serge it. I'm a sewer. I have been for years. But when I'm crocheting, it's nice not to have to pull my sewing machine out. Unfortunately, I don't have a room just for that. So anyway, I can keep a project easy with little mess. It's good for me. So all I'm going to do in this product, don't use too much of it. I'm just going to put a thin layer all the way around, and I'm going to glue it down bit by bit. Just do that. I'm going to spread it with my finger, just make a thin layering, maybe a little bit more back here. Okay. And you're just going to continue to do that all the way around. And you're going to line those seams up, make sure that they're nice and tidy and lined up together. Okay, and I'm going to continue doing the rest of the hat, and it's going to take a while for this to dry. The directions say about half an hour. I actually prefer mine to sit 2 to 4 hours before I start flipping it inside out or working with my piece. I want to make sure that it's adhered well and that it's not going to come apart because the glue hasn't quite cured yet. Again, if you're a sewer, it's much faster when you're working on a project to sew these up because you can get the hats put together right away. You could do it by hand, although I don't feel that the sewing by hand is going to quite give you the look that you want when you flip it inside out. It's going to be a little bit messier. But that's personal choice, and it also depends on what a good sewer you are. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to meet up with you again, and we're going to finish this hat off, and I think you're going to be really happy with the end result. So keep gluing it all the way around, and we'll see you soon. Okay, my hat is completely dry now, so all we're going to do is, this is the right side of the lining and the right side of my finished hat. We're going to put right sides of each hat together. Now, I like to make sure that my side seams are lined up with the sides of my finished hat. So we're just going to slip that in and line them up. I also want to mention, if your hat has a pom-pom, you want to make sure that it's on at this point. If there's any tags, I prefer that they're also sewn on at this point. The tags tend to look a little bit bulky if you try to put them on afterwards between two thicknesses, but that is personal preference. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the back, and I don't have a pin, so I'm just going to use my needle here. This is going to be my stopping point, because we're actually going to stitch this lining all the way around, and we're going to leave an opening so that we can flip the hat right side out. So I have my needle and thread, which I'm actually using this color just so that you can see it better, but normally I would use something that would blend in a bit more. So I'm going to leave a gap that is probably, yeah, about 3 inches. So I'm going to start about here. And I'm just going to work this. Let me move in a little bit. Oh, sorry. I'll move in a little bit there. And I'm going to work the needle back and forth. And you'll see I'm taking very tiny stitches, and I'm making a very small seam allowance. You want to make sure that when you're putting this lining in, that you're not taking too much from the bottom of the hat so that your hat isn't made shorter. Now, something else you can do if you're actually making a hat yourself that you're going to line, you could always add an extra round or an extra row of knitting or crochet. I'm actually going to take my stitches a little bit smaller. Smaller stitches are more work at the beginning, but it's going to produce a much tidier finish. And I'm just working back and forth. Now the reason I'm doing a back and forth stitch instead of going around the top is when you flip the hat inside out, if you're working your stitches like this, you're actually going to see the stitch when you flip the hat right side out. Anyway, I'm just going to leave that there. It's only 1 stitch. And I'm just going to work it all the way around. Very tiny, tiny stitches. I'm catching the lining and the knitted hat. So just like this. So I'm going to keep working. Now I do want to mention one other thing. This is just because of my years of sewing. When I have seams here, the one thing I want to do is I want to work that seam so that they're both towards the center back. Another thing that you can do is just clip the corner just a little bit, and that's going to reduce the bulkiness of that seam when you're working it. Okay, so I'm going to keep working this all the way around, and I'll meet up and I'll show you how to flip your hat right side out. Okay, so I have finally finished stitching all the way around, and you'll see I've still got the right sides facing. I'm just showing my stitches there. Make sure that you have caught the knitted hat as well. And now all we're going to do, and I've left my needle and thread attached because I still need that. We're just going to reach in. I'm grabbing my knitted portion of my hat and pulling it through, and then pushing that through as well. So you've got your right side of your knitted hat and the right side of the liner. Just open up your hat and push it in. And voila, there is your nice lining to your hat. Now the last thing we're going to do is just stitch up that hole, which I should mention, I made mine about 3 inches because this is an adult size hat, but if you're making a baby hat, make the hole much smaller, and then there'll be less for you to close up. I also want to show you one thing. Do you remember at the beginning when I showed you that stitch where I went over top? That's it right there. So if you did that all the way around, the stitches would be showing up. The way we've done it, they're nice and hidden. So we're just going to fold the liner in and fold a little bit of the hat in and stitch this closed. And again, I would normally use a thread that was easier to see. Now we're not flipping this inside out, so I actually am doing that stitch I showed you. We're just gonna, go all the way across. Just tiny little stitches so that they're not very noticeable. You can see them there. And this will be the back of your hat. And we're just gonna do that, oops, all the way around until this is closed shut. And here at the beginning is, I didn't pull that tight enough, so pull your stitches tight at the beginning. Anyway, I'm going to finish this off, and there you have it, a nice lined hat. And there's the tag. You can see where that's been sewn in. Anyway, I hope that everyone finds that tutorial very helpful, and if you do, and if you'd like to see me do a tutorial on how to line an ear flap hat, please comment below and I would be happy to do that for you. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching.